just to see if a couple other people get on that I was hoping will show up. So just give me a couple moments, please. Well, I guess for the sake of time, there's over 20 people that had registered, but maybe they'll be jumping on as we get started. Hopefully they will. Hate for anyone to miss it. Hopefully everyone can hear me, and welcome to this live webinar. I'm Corinna Pereira, the Director of Apprenticeship Programs and the California Apprenticeship Initiative Grant Manager at West Hills Community College District. And today I'm sharing with you the Food Safety Apprenticeship Program, recently approved by the state's Division of Apprenticeship Standards. This program is made available to the California food producers and processors by way of the California Apprenticeship Initiative grant that we did receive. Some of you online today may have an interest in hiring new QA or food safety technicians, or placing your existing QA staff into the program. So we want to give you enough information to know if it makes sense for your organization to subscribe. And please forgive the term subscribe. You'll get the terminology a little bit better as we go on through the slides. On this call should be, I don't see her on yet, but Jennifer Vargas, our program's assigned apprenticeship consultant from the DAS, Terry Brazzi, the director of our Ag and Industrial Sciences and Farm of the Future for West Hills College Coalinga. I also am hoping to see, and he may be on and I just don't see it, Dr. Tim Ellsworth, the program's curriculum developer for this program here at West Hills, and Nick Trujillo, my team's apprenticeship program coordinator. So as you can see, we have a strong team of folks here who've done quite a bit of work to bring this innovative program to industry, and we genuinely hope that you take full advantage of it. So, of course, it's helpful to know what an apprenticeship is exactly. So as an overview, apprenticeship is a formalized system of learning while earning developed by industry and offering an industry recognized credential. This system blends on-the-job training and experience with education. Apprenticeship can be new workers, but it also can be your current workers that need upskilling. In fact, we anticipate more apprentices in this program will be incumbent workers. Apprenticeship programs are developed for the purpose of meeting industry needs. So registered apprenticeship is a partnership between local education, the state or federal apprenticeship regulatory agency, occasionally an industry group, but most importantly, employers. Employer sponsors are the drivers of apprenticeship, and without you, apprenticeship just doesn't exist. Individuals within these components serve on the Apprenticeship Committee, which establishes and governs the apprenticeship program standards and guides the program's success. The committee consists of a few folks I introduced to you just a few moments ago, which would be Terry Brazzi and Dr. Ellsworth with West Hills College Coalinga. But in addition, Frank Pitts on the call from Neil Jones Food Company in Fireball, and Renee Ray from Peluso Cheese out in Los Banos. And also serving on the committee is Rob Meenan with the California League of Food Producers, who is the industry collaborative and a policy advocacy group that supports the training and workforce goals of food manufacturers and farmers. And I suggest or encourage you that if you don't know about the California League of Food Producers, you go onto LinkedIn and check out the great work that they do for your industry. So why a food safety apprenticeship? The Food Safety Modernization Act spiked a demand for upskilling. The California Apprenticeship Grant Initiative was an enormous incentive for West Hills College to provide industry with food safety training and industry credentials. Apprenticeship seemed like a logical solution as it combines industry-related education with on-the-job training and delivers that verifiable evidence of the training. So the apprenticeship program standards outline 3 major components, and those are instruction, on-the-job training, and wages. And this is how that looks. There's 306 hours of instruction that comes in the form of 6 4-credit courses offered by West Hills. Those are taught fully online, and they are tuition free under our grant. And they all align to West Hills Associate of Science degree in Food Science and Safety. The second major component, the on-the-job training, is provided by you, the employer. The job can be full-time, part-time, or seasonal, so long as it's 4,000 hours. And that work takes place with specific job skills in mind that need to be mastered within that time frame, with oversight from a supervisor, a lead, or journey level worker in the same or closely related occupation. Lastly, the wage schedule is implemented that has at least 1 step increase. Wages can be above, but not less than, the minimum set wage in the program standards. And we'll go into some detail on each of these components. For this slide, I'm going to invite Terry Brazzi to talk to you a little bit about this course outline designed for the first cohort of apprentices in the program. And Terry, I believe you can unmute yourself.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. So, and I'm going to also introduce, make sure Tim maybe says a little bit here too, but these are the complete set of courses that we've developed for the Food Science and Safety program. A lot of it was developed through Tim and Atif, a microbiology instructor that we have at West Hills. And they were going off of, I think, some other programs, but their focus was on industry. There's some other food science and safety programs within the state that are focused a little bit more on the student coming out of high school, and it really provides an introductory type of skill level. These courses are advanced, and they're built more for that bachelor's or master's, or for those people that are in industry and want to upgrade their skills. The sequence of courses that we have here, we're trying to match it to the season. That first course, Principles of Food Science, is kind of an introductory course, the basics, fundamentals. And right now it's scheduled October 19th through December 18th. So that would be the last approximately 9 weeks of the fall semester. Then in spring, we have FSS 20, Ag Laws and Regulations, and then Audits, Preventative Controls, and Produce Safety. That's running from January 19th to actually, I believe it's March 19th, which would be, again, the first 9 weeks of the spring semester. We believe those are times that match the processing plant's schedule, that where the people would be more available to take a class, 1 class in the fall, 2 classes in the spring. Then it continues, that cohort would continue the next year with another class in the fall and 2 more classes in the spring. Tim, anything that you want to add about the courses?
The only thing I would say is just to add to what you said, Terry, the idea that we designed this as part of a degree program so that students here would be able to apply this to transferable coursework is the idea, where they could go on and get like a bachelor's as well in food science and safety and move into the audit auditor career path or the food safety lab path or one of those areas as well. That's all I would add about it.
Okay. Again, I think they're very practical types of courses, and key thing is that they're all online. Would also add that we have a couple of instructors lined up. One instructor has taught some of these courses before, and she's done an excellent job. And she is in the food safety industry, so she has industry experience. Thank you.
Great, thank you both. I also just want to remind everyone that while we are grant funded to deliver this program tuition free for registered apprentices for the first cohort, and then if we find a good solid lead of employers across the state that want to take advantage of it, we'll open a second cohort and then even perhaps a third through the grant period. So we'll move on to the second component, which is the on-the-job training. So for the on-the-job training, it's spelled out in specific work processes in the program standards. I keep talking about program standards, but we'll be looking at those shortly, so just hang on with me there. These work processes are specific to job skills that your apprentice should seek to master within the program timelines. The work training is somewhat flexible, and you can submit your own work processes if these don't exactly align to the skills needed for a QA technician in your plant. These processes are typically derived from your QA or food safety technician job descriptions. And again, you'll notice a total of 4,000 hours is required, but prior credit can be granted, and we'll touch on time credit that can be granted in a later slide. So the last component is the step increases, or the wage schedule as it's called in the program standards. These are always time-based. For this program, an apprentice works at $15 or above an hour until 3 food safety courses and 2,000 hours of on-the-job training is complete. Then a step increase occurs. The step increase is in place until the final 3 courses and 2,000 hours are completed. Here's the trick to remember here. You can pay more than the stated wage schedule in the program standards, but you cannot pay less. The goal is to reward the apprentice for skills gains, which is known to motivate employees to achieve. So each year, the apprentice gains additional essential skills, and he or she becomes more productive and works more independently, eventually becoming a higher paid journey worker. So I'll just insert here that this may have been, if not an apprentice, a journey worker that you would have hired otherwise at much higher pay, while still having to train that employee according to your plant procedures, equipment, food type, and perhaps the organizational culture. West Hills anticipates starting its first cohort in the first food safety course in mid-October and can accommodate up to 40 apprentices for this cohort. However, recruiting, hiring, or even accumulation of on-the-job training hours can start as soon as right now. Workers who've been working in this job already can receive credit for their time up to 3,500 hours of the 4,000-hour program, or about 1.5 years. This depends on seasonal workers versus full-time employees, of course. An apprentice must have at least 500 hours in the program and have successfully completed all 6 courses in order to receive their certificates and their state-issued journey person card. So what happens when the apprentice completes? And I'm going to defer back to Terry Brazzi again on this slide. Terry, do you want to pick up here?
Okay, sure. So sometimes we get students through the program, and they're a little confused about all the certificates and things. So to clarify, the student completing this program or all those courses and meets the requirements will get a certificate of achievement from West Hills Community College. That is a type of certificate. So they're getting a piece of paper, a diploma, if you will, from West Hills saying they meet requirements of this food science and safety program. The state completion certificate is a different type of certificate. That is something that is recognized in a different way than our certificate of achievement. It may be recognized or accepted more by some industries or by some companies. I'd say it, but they aren't familiar with West Hill's program and what we accomplish with the students, but they know that the state standards, and so they maybe accept that more readily than they do the college certificate. So it's very valuable for them to have both. And then the state journey person card is a credential similar to what other industries such as electricians, plumbers, that also meets a certain level of standard for knowledge and skills. How's that, Corinna?
Sorry, I muted myself because the garbage man was coming. It's real life around here. You know, we're all working from home. So, well, some of us, except you essential services, obviously. But sounds good. Yeah, the state's completion certificate comes out of the Department of Industrial Relations. They're the State Department that also oversees labor code and the journey person card as well. Those two credentials are exactly the same credentials that come out of like your building trades, construction, and other like manufacturing apprenticeship programs. So it's those same exact credentials. In this particular case, what we did in forming this program was go to the state and say, here's the standards coming from industry and the courses and the wage scale that we'd like to use so that this program can also be honored, or the apprentices can also be honored with the same type of credentials. And so we've got that approval now. So we'll move on to the next slide. So responsibilities. Steps to get started. You'll want to obtain your organizational buy-in of the program standards. You'll get a glimpse of those here momentarily. And you can also just email me for an electronic copy. Then, if required by your HR department, you may need to develop a duty statement specific to an apprentice position and determine the appropriate wages. If you do feel like you need to develop a specific position and duty statement for an apprentice, or your organization feels that way, I would just take this is common practice too, I would take your existing like quality assurance or food safety technician position or job statement and just add the word apprentice to it, and then all of the work processes or work that's done under that job description just need to be done under the supervision of a journey level worker. So I tell people don't always try to reinvent the whole wheel. It could be quite simple actually. And then you would defer to the wage schedule minimums for the wages that you might incorporate into that duty statement or that position title. Then you'd recruit and select your apprentices, unless you're registering current workers that are already working in food safety or your QA department. And lastly, you'll complete and submit the required forms to our West Hills Apprenticeship Coordinator. And these forms I'm going to show you shortly. So supervisor responsibilities might include everything on the last slide, if you're a one-man band, which some of us are. But you'll ensure apprentices are registered in their classes and complete an apprentice orientation given by myself or Nick, our program coordinator. Employer supervisors are required to submit quarterly record of apprentice OJT hours and verification of apprentice step increases to the coordinator. As the program administrator, West Hills is responsible for providing all of those apprentice hours to the state, because the state requires that we show them how we came to the conclusion that the apprentice mastered the skills of the job before the state will issue their formal credential. Now, sometimes this tracking work is handled by an HR person, and that works fine too. So the responsibilities of the apprentice are to register online with West Hills College Coalinga and complete the college matriculation process. This sometimes requires the assistance of college support staff and can be done online. The apprenticeship coordinator will refer apprentices to an advisor or counselor when needed. The apprentices will attend apprentice orientation. And just FYI, this will be a recorded webinar or a scheduled live webinar that could take place later in the summer or early fall for that first cohort of apprentices. Apprentices will enroll in food science and safety classes according to the course outline and are required to complete all coursework. And lastly, apprentices share responsibility with their supervisor or lead in ensuring that they're being adequately trained on the job and mastering the job skills laid out in the program standards. Forms. Okay, starting with the apprenticeship program standards, not exactly a form, but the governing documents for the training program. There's also what's known as an employer subscription agreement, and this is a form signed by the employer agreeing to sponsor apprentices, and that means employ apprentices, if you didn't already pick up on that. Just a caveat, this isn't an internship or an externship. This is an actual career training program hosted by your organization for your employees, new or incumbent employees. And then there's an employer pledge. It's a simple one-pager that an employer agrees to be an equal employment opportunity employer. Nothing on that form is likely to be anything you aren't already doing in accordance with California Labor Code. And lastly, the apprentice agreement. This is executed by both the employer and the apprentice. And one important thing to note is that the employers are not obligated to pay wages to a registered apprentice for coursework related to their apprenticeship. And I'm just going to repeat that. I'm going to say this one more time because it's really important. Employers are not obligated to pay wages to a registered apprentice for the coursework related to their apprenticeship. The apprentice acknowledges this on the agreement that the terms of employment are based on him or her completing the courses outlined in the standards. And this, again, it's the #1 benefit to employers for sponsoring apprentices and or subscribing to a registered apprenticeship program one, they can do the training on the job and get paid for that, but the courses and the coursework taken that are part of the program standards, you're not going to be paying unless you choose to. You do not have to pay wages to that individual during that time when they're doing homework or studying or anything like that. And then also their job is dependent upon completing that program, or can be, if you so choose for it to be. And so that's all on the forms. The goal of this program administered by West Hills was to keep apprenticeships simple for our industry partners. So those are quick and easy forms, and I'll show you what those look like right now, and then right after that we'll jump right into the Q&A. So first, the program standards, which I have right here. This is our approval from the Department of Industrial Relations that we did receive on March 2nd. So we're very proud of that. It took quite a while. And then I'm just going to scroll to some of the important parts of this that we went over in the slides. So this is just our cover page here, and then a table of contents. I'm going to scroll right down to training schedule and working conditions, attachment B, because that's what we've gone over. So just bear with me here 1 second. Here's our committee, attachment A, attachment B. Training schedule and working conditions. This is the occupation and its ONET code. This outlines the program, the wage schedule we showed you on a slide, how an individual advances, which we discussed. Overtime is just the same as labor law, so nothing there to be alarmed about. Same thing with working conditions, just falls in line with the labor code that you're already following. Work training, the employers are confirming here that they're going to determine how to rotate an apprentice to make sure that they're mastering all skills of the job. These are those job skills here, excuse me. Right here, the total of 4,000 hours. These are those work processes or on-the-job training same thing really. Work processes, on the job training, it goes hand in hand. And this is the instruction. These are the courses that we showed you. And then there is a ratio requirement of 1 apprentice to at least 1 journey person. So you certainly want to have, you certainly want to make sure that 1 journey person is capable of overseeing the work of at least 1 apprentice, and it can be more. So there's a reason why this is here. It's more related to building and construction trades. It's not to limit you to only employing 1 apprentice and having 1 mentor for each apprentice. That's not the case. What the reason for this was, just to give you a brief explanation, is what would happen in construction is a contractor would hire multiple apprentices and not as many journey people, because apprentices were cheaper. And so to avoid cheap labor, building trades wrote this in. The labor side of the trades wrote this requirement in. So it doesn't limit you on our end. And then just the other documents. There's a no harassment policy, which shouldn't be anything unlike what you already practice at your workplace. This might be something your HR people want to take a look at. And then just our commitment in the standards that we're going to provide the educational component. And so that's the program standards. And then I'll share with you, the next couple of documents. The employer subscription agreement. Give me a second for it to load. Looks like this. Let me see if I can blow this up a little bit. Oop, a little too much. Okay, employer subscription agreement. Here, the employer, it's got these highlighted areas for the employer to complete. An employer would sign on here as a new participating employer. This kind of gives a little bit of the structure. The wages. This is some area I want to point out here. The employer selects whether the work processes will follow in line with the program standards, or if you want to attach your own work processes, because perhaps the processes and the standards aren't really aligning with the work done in your plant. And then an employer could select here whether they would like to be a committee member. And I encourage all employers that want to sponsor apprentices within their organization to be a committee member, but it isn't required. And then the signature of the employer. Pretty simple form. I actually helped create it when I worked at DAS. So the next form is the employer's EEO pledge. So this is very simple. Just pledging again that the recruitment, selection, employment, and training of apprentices shall be without discrimination. And then it's just filling it out here, these 3 areas in the table, and then signing. And these forms go to DAS, which is the Division of Apprenticeship Standards. The last form is the apprentice agreement, and this is the form the employer and the apprentice sign, so the apprentice understands what they're getting themselves into. And so it outlines the hours of the program, the occupation, the ONET code, but the apprentice or an HR person or supervisor fills out the highlighted area. If we give them credit, or we're giving them credit, here's where I encourage the supervisor to give us how many months that might look like. This should be time-based here, but it's not, or at least hours-based, but it's not. So if you want to give, if you want to look at 4,000 hours as like a full-time job, that's about 2 years. So here you could give them up to 18 months of credit here. I always encourage employers to do not complete the date section, because when the consultant from the state enters this into the system, it'll already populate a date. So we don't want to mess that up and have to redo the form. This is the date it's executed. I need to receive these forms and have them over to the Division of Apprenticeship Standards within 30 days of execution. So for all apprentices that will be registered with an employer, if you're going to have several, I'd say give me all of these, within maybe 2 weeks. That way I have plenty of time to get them on my tracking sheet, so I can make sure they're all getting enrolled, and then also to the Division of Apprenticeship Standards where they can get them registered in the system. And then there's a second side, and here's where the employer signs. And then here's where our committee signs, right? So someone on our committee will be selected as a chair. We're having a committee meeting directly after this webinar, so we'll make some of those decisions then. But there's a backside to the form. And this side is for the Division of Apprenticeship Standards to collect data on apprentices so they can go back and report that data to the rest of the apprenticeship community. So we just, trying to make sure that we're maintaining, or at least DAS is making sure that they're maintaining a diverse apprenticeship or apprentice workforce. And so that's what these sections are for. So we ask the apprentice to complete these sections. We don't need to complete them for them. And then the apprentice signs here. And so that's the apprentice agreement, and that's it for the forms. Again, we went for a program and with this type of structure to make it we'll simplify it for the employers or for our partners. And so let me try to do an unmute all. And we've got about maybe 20 questions. So if everybody wants to mute themselves, and then we can have a specific question.
Hi, this is Rob Neenan with the League of Food Producers. Can you hear me?
I can. There's just some echo in there.
Yeah, I hear it on my end too.
I think I got it.
You probably should go ahead and just unmute everybody, and then just the one person that talks unmute.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. So thank you. Okay, Rob, can you hear us?
Okay. Yeah, just fine. Several things, some questions and comments. I think this is great. Thank you guys for putting this together. We'd really like to work with you to help get the word out to the industry. A couple of things, and maybe one thing is, can I get a copy of your slides?
Let me see.
Can you hear me?
Yes, of course you can. I was trying to be funny, but
okay.
Hard to be funny when you're on a web.
Okay. That's okay. And just so I understand, when you talk about tuition free, is it it's the employment training panel or the Division of Apprenticeship Standards? Who's picking up the tuition cost for this? And maybe you said it and I didn't catch it.
So we are actually waiving the tuition. The college, West Hills Community College, or West Hills College Coalinga, is waiving the tuition. And that's something that we agreed to when we applied for the grant.
Okay. The next thing, I had a question, and maybe this is for, yeah, a couple more questions. This is a dumb question because I'm not a computer person. When you say they're online, so someone could access them 24 hours a day, or are there going to be live lectures during a set time period that someone need to catch?
Well, I think I can answer that, along with maybe Tim if he's still on. The way it was taught last time is there was both synchronous and asynchronous. Synchronous means that it's live, so there were live meetings. Our instructor would have a video meeting very similar to this, where there were students online communicating with the instructor in live video feed, and then that meeting was recorded, and then it was saved within the learning management system. So if a student could not attend the live video meeting, they could watch it afterwards and still get the content. Otherwise, most of the other content in an online course is available 24 hours a day through this learning management system, where they can see the assignments. They have the access to the different presentations, PowerPoint presentations. They have access to reading material, and then also the testing material. And that would also be done online. The instructor is responsible for then maintaining a flow to the course, typically every week moving on to another topic. The other aspect of online classes, there's typically a discussion or chat thread where the instructor asks a question of the students, and the students respond to each other and develop a ongoing inter-student collegiate discussion about a topic. and so there's a mixture of methodologies there that I think West Hills has got had quite a bit of success with online courses that makes it very, I believe, very effective.
That sounds great. The last question I have, I was a little confused, but then I'm a little slow. In terms of, you talked about the completion certificate, the state journeyman card, and the West Hills Community College Certificate of Achievement. Someone could obtain if they wanted all three, or is it a one of the above situation?
They will receive all three at the completion of the program. Yeah, so it's
Okay.
nice to have those stackable credentials for your employees at completion. It gives them something to feel proud of and share with their families. And my guess is, and my hope is, that some of the larger food processors who might find themselves wanting to put a larger group of employees into the program might, even at the end of the program, have some sort of ceremony or completion, graduation, something like that. And we can actually, in our grant, support something like that. So if there's if an opportunity where, say, one of our local or even another larger employer statewide puts, say, 30 apprentices through the program, and then in 2022, when all of the courses and the work training is complete, we can certainly just discuss options for doing some grant support of a graduation ceremony. And the building trades do that quite often in their apprenticeship programs. They'll have some nice ceremonies where those individuals can invite their family members and kind of make it special for them, because it is considered an industry credential that they'll be receiving. So, and they can continue the coursework and work toward that AS degree in food science and safety that we offer at West Hills Coalinga, if they choose.
Okay, just the last thing I'd say is that either the second part of the call, or we can do this offline, is to sort of have a chat with you and Terry about how we can work with you to roll this out. My suggestion, and Frank, I see Frank's on it, he may have some suggestions. This would be a good time to reach out to the HR folks at the processing plants before they get busy with summer and running through fall. That getting this in front of people now, I would think would be a good idea, but Frank may have some suggestions. And that's all I had to say.
Frank, did you have some?
Yeah, hi. Yeah, yes, hi, Rob. Hi, everybody. Yeah, we got an echo. Can you hear me?
You are muted. You want to type in the chat? Oh, here we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, so people are using the chat as otherwise, I think everybody's muted. Corinna, is from your end, is it working?
I'm okay. Sorry, Frank. It looks like you're struggling with audio. I apologize. I do have some other slides that I've used in prior presentations. We have a little bit of time left, so I'll just roll through those really quickly if it helps at all. And at this point, it is what it is. But those of you who are on the committee, we'll hang up from this webinar in a few minutes, and then we'll jump on the committee call. But just to kind of give you some bits of data here, the Center for American Progress informs us that 97% of U.S. apprenticeship sponsors, which are private employers who offer apprenticeships, would recommend an apprenticeship program. Let's see, a couple others here. I haven't read these in a while. According to LinkedIn, 94% of employees say that they would stay at a company longer if it invested in their career development. These are all sort of related to what we're trying to do here. A report out of Australia indicated that apprenticeship increases productivity. Employees in a structured training program are motivated to achieve. Here's one for finance people. I laughed because that was not my favorite class. It was discovered in a comprehensive study of 784 employers across Canada that for every $1 spent on apprenticeship training, employers receive an average benefit of $1.47. The same study revealed that the net benefit of apprenticeship training increases year after year over the course of the apprenticeship. That's because each year the apprentice gains additional essential skills and therefore becomes more productive and works more independently. There's also a strong business case for apprenticeship in that same study. The employers found that homegrown journey persons are 29% more productive. Let's see, we've got a couple more here. Employers found that apprentices adapt better to the organizational culture. This equates to employee engagement, and therefore your risk of future skill shortages is significantly reduced. And lastly, employers noted that journey persons benefit from mentoring an apprentice. That's because journey level workers find that they can rely on apprentices to carry some or much of the workload. This means reduced overtime, reduced sick leave taken, and reduced burnout of your journey level worker employees. And just as a caveat to that, imagine how your plant supervisors would also appreciate apprentices as human resources, as they're more flexible because of their motivation for achieving their credentials. So that's just a little bit of some highlights on apprenticeship. And with that, let me just check to make sure there's no other chat calls. If anybody has any other messages, feel free to write them in the chat, and then I'll try to answer a couple more, and then we can go about our Friday. Let's see. Yeah, I wish I could get you, Frank. Let's try you one more time, Frank. I'm going to unmute you. Still a little bit of echo there.
Well, there just seems to be a bad echo.
I noticed the other day I was on a webinar and it was causing the echo. I didn't want to believe it, but I turned out it was me. Because sometimes it's just the way our microphone. All right, well, that's it, everybody. Just again, I'll go back to emails and phone numbers here. And if anyone would like to give me a call, again, our office is closed for the spring break next week, but leave me a message, leave me an email, and we'll be getting back to you on any questions or if we can help you in any way to navigate any of this. And thank you so much for being here. And with that, have a great Easter.
Thank you all.